Most people in the world have heard of Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, but I want to highlight 13 other known black heroes from around the world. Number 13, Victoria Santana Cruz from Peru. She was an Afro Peruvian activist and an artist who championed Black Peruvian identity and visibility across the world. She was a choreographer, a poet, composer, and a professor. She is credited with sparking the revival of the Afro Peruvian connection with their African ancestral heritage. Her poem, Migratoria Negra, became the Black pride across Latin America. Number 12, Reginald Lewis from the United States of America. He was one of the richest black American men in the 1980s and the first African American to build a billion-dollar company. The company's name was TLC Beatrice International Holdings Inc. Number 11, Gaspar Yanga from Mexico. Yanga was believed to be a member of the royal family of Gabon. He was captured, sold into slavery, and brought to Mexico, where he eventually escaped his chains. He led other stolen Africans to liberty and established the first free black settlement in the Americas in the highlands of Veracruz. The settlement remained hidden for over 30 years, but it was eventually attacked by the Spanish. After years of bloody battles, the local government heeded to Yanga's terms, recognition of the free black settlement. The settlement remains today in Veracruz region of Mexico, appropriately named Yanga. Number 10, Viola Desmond from Canada. She was a Canadian civil and women's rights activist and businesswoman of black Nova Scotian descent. In 1946, she challenged racial segregation at a cinema in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, by refusing to leave a whites only area of the Roseland Theatre. For this, she was convicted of a minor tax violation for the 1 cent tax difference between the seat that she had paid for and the seat that she had used, which was more expensive. Desmond case is one of the most publicized incidents of racial discrimination in the history of Canada and helped start the modern civil rights movement in Canada. Number 9, Patrice Lumumba from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was an anti-colonial hero, freedom fighter, political prisoner, and the first prime minister of the Republic of Congo. He played an active role in the fight to free his country from Belgium's brutal colonial rule, and he envisioned a Congo that controlled its own natural resources and economy. Lumumba became a symbol of liberation for people around the world, beloved by the likes of Malcolm X. Statues in his honor have been erected all over the world, including in countries such as Cuba, Hungary, and Russia. Number 8, Jean-Jacques Dessalines from Haiti. He was the first Haitian emperor, leader of the Haitian Revolution, and the first ruler of an independent Haiti under the 1805 Constitution. He was one of the founding fathers of the nation of Haiti. He was directly responsible for the country, and under his rule, Haiti became the first country in the Americas to permanently abolish slavery. Number 7, Stokely Carmichael from Trinidad. He popularized the phrase Black Power in 1966. Stokely Carmichael was a social activist who protested for civil rights and advocated for global liberation of those of African descent. He would spend his later years traveling through Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, calling for freedom for all oppressed people. His example inspired a new generation of activists, including the founders of the Black Panther Party. Number 6. Evelyn Scott from Australia. She was an Indigenous Australian elder and a civil rights activist. She helped create the 1967 referendum to officially recognize Indigenous people in the country. When Evelyn began her activism, Indigenous people, regardless of age, were seen as minors under the law. The colonial government of Australia saw them as needing protection. They had no legal rights and were unrecognized on their own land. Evelyn fought for Aboriginal access to adequate education, proper medical care, employment, housing, and the rights of Indigenous women. Number 5. Wilfredo Lam from Cuba. He was a world renowned Afro Chinese Cuban artist who built his career around reviving the Afro Cuban spirit through art. After spending more than 20 years in Europe, Lam returned to Cuba and was disheartened to see his Afro Cuban culture at risk of being erased. Black bodies and African customs had been degraded and used as tourist props. The power of blackness that his mother and grandmother had taught him was evaporating across the island. Lam began reaching deep into his African heritage, creating figures in his work that fused human and plant elements, influences that came from African poetry and culture. Number 4. Charles Ignatius Sancho from England. He was a British composer, businessman, writer, and abolitionist. He is the first black Briton to vote in general election, and he did so twice in his lifetime. He published various collections of musical compositions and owned a general store. Sancho used his influence and status to encourage notable Britons to stand against slavery by writing letters in opposition of the barbaric practice. Number 3. Jaime Gonzalez from Ecuador. He was an Afro-Ecuadorian social activist and politician. His determination for social justice grew and he became an advocate for the disenfranchised, believing that the working class should rule the country. With the backing of many blacks, indigenous, and working class Ecuadorians, he would go on to become a congressman and the first black man in the country to run for president. It is believed that he had a strong chance of winning but was officially assassinated in 1999 before the election. Number 2. Nuruddin Farah from Somalia. He is a Somali writer and lecturer whose works have been hailed all over the globe. He was born during the time of Italian colonial rule to a merchant father and a well-known oral poet mother. His early education led him to school in his native Somalia and neighboring Ethiopia, then on to India, where he pursued university studies. Farah's novels would lead him to exile, as many of them brilliantly paralleled life under Somalia's post colonial military dictatorship. Number 1. Nanny of the Maroons from Jamaica. She was born in Ghana, West Africa. She was kidnapped into slavery and brought to the island of Jamaica, where she led slave uprisings for freedom and revolts against the British. Escaping from slavery, led her to the mountains where she joined communities with other free slaves. Queen Nanny planned and executed successful attacks on plantations and helped free over 1,000 enslaved Africans over her lifetime. She is held as a national hero in Jamaica and is credited with preserving African culture on the island. Whether it be North or South America, Africa, Europe, Australia, Black heroes can be found all over the globe. Let us not forget these people who gave so much, some of them their very lives, for the survival of their people and for the betterment of their race. And there you have it, folks. I hope you found this video very informative. If you did find it informative, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please, please.